Welcome to the Stray Pointers podcast, where seemingly ordinary people join us for extraordinary discussions. You're watching Season 3, Episode 1 of the Stray Pointers podcast. This episode was recorded on January 20th, 2025. I'm your host, Jim Lawless. Our email address is straypointers@gmail.com. For more information about the show, including the show notes for this episode, please visit straypointers.com. Tonight we have two guests with us, father and son. Mr. Bruce Hoyt, and returning to the show from about a year ago, Mr. Ben Hoyt. Guys, welcome to the show. Ben, welcome back.
Thank you. Glad to
Ben,
be here.
Ben and I had been in a little bit of contact. If you had listened to his show from last January, you'll find that his dad played a major part in his technical upbringing. So at Ben's suggestion, we thought it might be good to talk to Bruce and find out a little bit of his background in computers and programming. So, Bruce, why don't you tell me a little bit about your earliest tinkering with things technical, like electronics and computers?
That goes way back. When I was a boy, I suppose I would have been maybe 10 years old, 12 years old. My dad, who had always been interested in electronics, made a Morse key, that is the key itself, two of them, and put one out in an old shed outside the garage, and put the other one in the garage, and connected them with two wires, and taught us to send Morse code messages back and forth. So that was my first real introduction, you might say, to electronics.
So these were the kinds with magnets that would draw the key down. If the sender was sending, it would click on the
no magnet, but just no magnet, but just made contact and sent a signal. Let's see, how would that be? I think he had a tone generator of some kind.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So how did you progress from there?
Then it was a few years later that I really got interested in amateur radio, and I got my amateur radio license. I built my first transmitter by going down to the local dump and getting some parts from old TVs. And I put together out of the ARRL manual, Amateur Radio Relay League, I think it stands for, which had lots of technical information. And I learned a lot about electronics by reading that manual, and then put together my first transmitter. And I had bought a Heathkit receiver, shortwave receiver. And so that was my first introduction into amateur radio and electronics on my own.
So did you build your transmitter and test it with your receiver?
Yeah. Yeah. I was and of course put up a dipole antenna, very simple wire, and I managed to talk to quite a few people around the States. And one time I talked to somebody in Russia. This is in 1962. And somebody in New Zealand as well.
Oh, how prophetic.
Yeah.
So how did you go from amateur radio to computers?
After I finished my master's degree in mathematics at the University of South Carolina, we had gotten involved in a local church, and were quite committed to involvement with the congregation there. And so because of my studies and lack of time, I hadn't really pursued amateur radio. But the church urged me to consider going to study for the ministry, and finally we agreed to that. So we moved from South Carolina to Mississippi, and that's where I studied for the ministry in Jackson, Mississippi. While I was there, we rented a house, and pardon me, and the landlord was living just next door, and we got to know them. He said one day to me, "My son's coming out from Los Angeles, and he's working in computing. I thought you might be interested in meet him." I said, "Oh yeah, I'd love to meet him." So I met his son, and we got talking about computers. And he said he had brought his computer along with him. And I said, "What?" Yeah, he'd brought his computer along with him. Now, I'd been out of circulation since I got my master's degree in 1969, and this was 1976. So I hadn't realized the development of chips and circuit boards and so on. I just hadn't been aware of what was happening. And so I was shocked, because a computer to me, the smallest computer I'd ever seen, was desk size. And yeah, he pulled it out of his briefcase. It was a single board KIM,
Oh, sure.
KIM-1, I think.
Sure.
So I think it used a 6502 chip and had 1K of RAM and a built-in monitor that you could use the hex keypad to enter codes into the machine.
Now, prior to this, though, you said you got your master's in mathematics. Were you exposed to Fortran or something like that in college?
Yes. My second year in college, I guess. So that would have been 66. One of the classes was doing some computations, numerical computations, and the professor arranged for us to go down to a local bank at night after the bank was shut down and use their computer. And we ran Fortran on it. The Fortran compiler was a deck of cards about, maybe 10 inches high, a stack of cards. That was a compiler.
Wow.
So you put the compiler through the reader, the hopper and the card reader, and then you put your program on the back end of that after having punched your program into cards. And so it took 2 or 3 minutes to read the whole stack of cards that represented the compiler, and then compile your program. And of course, you always have bugs, and it spit out bugs on the IBM typewriter, which was the output device. Yeah.
Okay. So back
first introduction.
Okay. So back to the KIM-1. Did this have a hex keypad that you coded with? Okay.
Yeah, it did. Now I never used it. It was my neighbor's son,
Okay.
my landlord's son. I never used that, but it got me interested, and so I started reading up on the development in chips and what was happening with CPUs. And so when I finished my studies for the ministry, which was in 1978, then I straight away ordered a single board computer. It was the OSI, what was it called?
Was that the Superboard II?
Yeah, that's it. Superboard II, OSI Superboard II. Yeah, and it had a keyboard built in, key soldered to the printed circuit board, and it had 8K of RAM. It had an 8K ROM with Microsoft Basic in it that Bill Gates had just recently written, and it had a connection for a cassette recorder to record your programs or your data.
I think this is a picture of a bare board
Yeah.
Superboard II.
Yes, I don't recognize the back right, the top right.
It might be customized, or it might be. They said something about this one being there's like a Model 600 or something along those lines.
Uh-huh, uh-huh. Yeah, well, anyway, that's what it was. So I just had to put together a power supply, which I knew how to do from my electronics experience earlier,
Mm-hmm.
and hook up an old TV, and off I was.
So you've got the computer together. Did you figure out how to program it?
Well, of course, having worked in Fortran already, I knew how to program. And also later on, now this was while I was doing my master's degree studies,
Mm-hmm.
I actually worked in PL1. Are you familiar with that?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, I worked in PL1 for a while at the university, and they wanted to hire me, but I had other plans, and so I never went in that direction.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew how to program, and it was just a matter of learning the grammar of BASIC, which I'd never used before, and
Mm-hmm.
that's pretty simple. Yeah.
Okay. So um, how did you go? Well, first of all, I saw an article of yours reviewing the Superboard II in an
Oh,
archive of an old magazine called Micro, the
micro.
6502 Journal.
Yes, right. Yeah, I did. I wrote a couple articles for that magazine. Uh-huh.
And let me see here. I think I've got a picture of that magazine. Here's the cover. So this looks
Yeah.
like was this something you could just buy on the newsstand, or did you have to special order this?
I don't think I ever had a copy of it, hard copy.
Oh, is that right?
I sent my articles to the magazine, but I don't think I ever saw a copy.
Well,
Yeah.
this is it's available on archive.org as a PDF if you ever want to go back and read what you had put together here.
Yeah, when I say I hadn't seen a copy, I've got the copy now, but in PDF form. But at the time, I don't think I ever saw a copy.
Okay. As I was looking for this magazine, there was another article I came across from 1983 from a gentleman named Sherwood Hoyt. Is he
Oh
related?
yeah, yes, he's my youngest brother. I'm the oldest in the family. He's my youngest brother,
So
and
you got
he's worked
did
in computers ever since.
okay. Did you get everybody hooked on 6502 then?
No, I don't think I really had much influence. Even I had a little bit of influence on Sherwood because he lived with us for a while before he was married, and we worked together on my Superboard computer writing programs
Okay.
and adding equipment, hardware equipment to it.
Was he college age then, Dad?
Um, no, I think it was before he went to college. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was. He's 13 years younger than me, so yeah, it was.
Okay. Okay. So sometime later you began using a language called Forth. Can you tell me a little bit about your first exposure to Forth?
Yeah, that was after I had the Superboard, and let's see if I can get my timing right here. Yeah, after I had the Superboard, I modified the Superboard so that it would display 80 characters in a line rather than 40 characters in a line, which is the way it came. So I added some hardware to do that. And that enabled me to, write decent programs.
Hmm.
Um,
Was this
uh,
something you came up with on your own, or was this something you'd read
yeah, on
about?
my own.
Okay.
Yeah, on my own. Yeah, I pretty well deciphered, or what do you say, reverse engineered the Superboard. So I knew
Okay.
how it functioned. and I added enough RAM to the video output circuitry to double the line length. Yeah, and so we're writing programs. This is Sherwood and me. We're writing programs in BASIC. And one program that always interested me, one puzzle that always interested me, was called the Pentomino puzzle. Are you familiar with it?
No, I'm not.
It's a pentomino is like a domino. A domino has two squares that it's made of. A pentomino has 5 adjacent squares, and there are 12 different pentomino shapes possible. Those 12 shapes, adding, putting them all together, total 60 squares. So the puzzle then is, can you take those 12 shapes and put them into a 10 by 6 rectangle? And it turns out that there are 2,339 different solutions, unique solutions. Well, I'd gotten interested in that when I was at university. And so we decided we were going to write a program to solve that puzzle in BASIC on the Superboard. Well, we did, and the program worked, but it only tested laying down one piece at a time, you might say. It only tested one piece, about 1 piece per second or so. And I could do that manually myself faster.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided we had to improve the program by changing languages. And so we rewrote the program in assembly language, 6502 assembly language.
Mm-hmm.
That speeded it up by about 600 times. And so we were actually able to get some solutions to the puzzle. Yeah. Now, I've lost my train of thought. What was the question you were asking me originally?
We were talking about your path to fourth.
Yeah, to fourth. Yeah. Yeah. So it was after I had written the program in assembly language, that I realized assembly language is pretty it's pretty basic.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted something a little more sophisticated. And I ran across an article in one of the computing magazines at the time that talked about Charles Moore and his development of Forth.
Mm-hmm.
And I liked that language as I read about it, and I thought I can do that myself. So I wrote an interpreter for Forth in assembly language, and then ran that on the Superboard computer. Mm-hmm.
Oh, so you'd never seen like the fourth interest groups reference implementation?
No.
Okay.
No, I was not aware of that at all. No, I just did it from scratch.
Okay.
I'm a DIY person.
Did you do it just from the magazine article, or did you find some specs from there were places that used to sell specifications and things like that?
Yeah, no, I didn't use any specs, but from the magazine article, it was a tutorial
Mm-hmm.
in how to use Forth. And so there was enough information about the structure of the language that I could put together an interpreter for it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, did you ever market that for the Ohio
No,
Scientific?
no, no. I was too busy with being a pastor.
Okay. So
So computing has always just been a hobby for me.
so what had you ever used a commercial fourth or one of the public domain or open source versions?
I did use Anton Ertl's Forth for a while.
Okay.
A German man who developed a compiler in C that would compile Forth
Oh, just
directly
G.
in the machine code.
Oh, okay. This isn't G fourth you're talking about though, is it?
Well, it was before G Forth.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So I got in contact with him on a BBS bulletin board system, and we interchanged a few ideas. And it was before he developed G Forth. Mhm.
Okay.
I
Okay.
think it might have even been before GNU was around.
Oh,
When did GNU start?
I'm not
because
sure. I've got Stallman's book back here behind me somewhere. I'll have to dig that out and
yeah,
look.
yeah. Anyway, it was early days, so we're talking early 80s.
Okay. Okay. So when I interviewed Ben about a year ago, he told me that some of his earliest tutelage in computing was you teaching him Forth and assembly language. Did you did you um, sort of put Forth out there as a better language than Basic?
I never put it out anywhere. No. Um, we had moved to New Zealand by then. Benjamin was born just before we moved to New Zealand. And so by the time I was giving the boys some encouragement in the computing direction, Ben would have been, I don't know, 10 years old, something like that. So that would have been early 90s. Does that
Okay.
sound right, Ben?
Yeah, that sounds right. And the earliest memories I have are typing basic programs out of the back of a magazine, those silly little games that
Okay.
most of the time you got one character wrong and it didn't work. But that's my earliest memories. So it wasn't
Yeah,
quite fourth. Fourth came a little bit later for me.
Okay.
yeah, yeah. So, but by then, I had when we arrived in New Zealand, I had bought a big board two, I think maybe. It was a Z-80 machine, and it ran CPM. And I had set it up with an 8-inch floppy disk drive. So I had a real computer by that time. You
Okay.
can
Now,
hardly program. You can hardly do much programming with a cassette tape recorder because they're not very reliable. But an 8-inch disc was great.
now, did you write your own Forth again, or did you use one of the available Forths for CPM?
No, I wrote my own fourth, yeah,
Okay.
on the Z80. Yeah.
Okay. I'm sensing a pattern here. Did you ever have you ever used a commercial or public domain Forth?
No, I never have.
Okay.
No, never have.
Okay.
Well, you've dabbled in GeForce more recently, but it's mostly been writing your own, right?
Yeah, yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, I saw your name in the G4 documentation. Were you a reviewer? There's some citations to thank you, a group of folks, thank you for your suggestions, that sort of thing. And your name was in there for G4th, and I'd seen another one for Win32 Fourth. They had given you a thank you. Were you involved with either of those
132 fourth.
projects? Hmm.
I'm not sure what 132 fourth is.
I'm sorry, Win32.
Oh, Win
Windows.
30.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Mhm. Um, I supplied Anton Ertl my fourth puzzle solver for the Pentomino puzzle,
Oh,
so that he could use it for testing his fourth program for speed.
very good.
Yeah. So that's the main connection I had at that point, and why I was cited. I don't know why I was cited in Win32 fourth. I'm not
Okay.
sure.
And then I had found a reference to you in relation to a Windows-based fourth called Small 32. And there was it looked like a collaborator from Russia in what I was reading. Do you remember this at all?
Hmm. It's just a vague, small 32, just a vague rings a bell, but I don't remember any details about that.
Okay.
I did have some contact with a Russian. Whew, I don't remember now. Sorry about that.
Okay. Do you think fourth is a good language to use for teaching computing?
If you want to teach at a low level, in other words, so that the person learning about computing actually knows what the machine is doing, I
Hmm.
think so. It would be a good language for that. Better than C in that regard, because it requires you to really know what the machine is doing. So yeah, I would say that's a good language to learn about computers at the low level. But of course, most people aren't interested in learning about computing at the low level anymore. They're used to high level programs that have lots of packages already written for them that they can link together and produce a humongous size database or something like that.
Yeah, I can speak to that. I think because I did learn that, well, partly learned that way. Um, I think it is phenomenal for learning low level computing. If you're going to write a compiler for C, you get stuck in parsing. You get stuck in parsing for ages, and there's a big complicated parsing syntax problem. Whereas Forth, parsing is just split on white space. So all the fun stuff, parsing is easy. All the fun stuff is left. So you're implementing a hash table for the dictionary of words. You're implementing the interpreter, the sort of low-level interpreter, whether it's direct threaded or otherwise. And so all the fun stuff is what remains. And I think I learned a lot that way. Linked lists, hash tables, before I knew what the names for those were.
Have the two of you ever collaborated on building a Forth?
Not really. Not really. I think
Not
you
really.
Mhm.
I used Dad's Forth early on, before I did the rite of passage and implemented my own. Uh, uh, not seriously. My brother, one of my older brothers, an electrical engineer, collaborated a little bit, but that's about it.
Okay.
I encouraged my sons to go on the path that I had done and develop things themselves.
Mhm.
And they learned very quickly that way. Got their, got their fingers involved in the nitty gritty at the tinker toy level, you might say.
So Bruce, do you still tinker with electronics and Forth nowadays?
Not much with electronics unless something in the house needs to be repaired. I still do that, even though in New Zealand, there are so many restrictive laws that you're not allowed to work very much with the electrical system. You have to have a sparky, as they're called here, an electrician.
Wow.
Yeah, but I go ahead anyway.
Do you
And mhm.
do you code?
Yeah, I do code now and then, mostly just high level stuff when I need something on my computer that I can't find very much available, or when I'm processing some, um, doing some word processing for my own use, or maybe for our church and the larger denomination. Yeah,
And what language or languages do you use?
I've used awk for quite a bit of that. I've used some Python, um, some C. Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything we haven't touched on that you'd like to talk about this afternoon?
Hmm.
Or I guess it's this morning for you. It's this
Morning
afternoon for
here.
me.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, it's morning here. I know, Ben, maybe you have some suggestions.
I can think of a couple of things. One of the questions you had on your list, Jim, was you lived in Tennessee and moved to New Zealand. How did that happen? Which is it ties into the statement at the beginning that Dad had a lot of influence on my technical um, development, which is very true. But as it happens, he also had a lot of influence on my non-technical development. Um, so maybe you can answer how you ended up in New Zealand and the computing scene in either place.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say that I have been in the computing scene really. It's just been a hobby and something I enjoy doing. Um, when I was in Tennessee, that was my first pastorate, and uh, there were some difficulties in the church, and so finally we had to leave, and we didn't know exactly where to go. But I had been in contact with a colleague of mine from our theological studies, and he said, "Would you consider coming to New Zealand because we need pastors?" And so that seemed to be God's direction for us.
Mm-hmm.
And as we pondered it, it became clearer and clearer that yes, we should go in that direction. So we shifted with our 5 children. Ben's the 5th, to New Zealand in 1981, end of 1981. And then after I got into my first congregation, I had to develop again some hardware and some software to use a computer in New Zealand. A bit of a challenge because in New Zealand at the time, computers were almost unknown. The big corporations had them, but personal computers, no one had them. And so when I had the big board with CPM on it, in my first charge there in Masterton, New Zealand, I found that there was a technical guy. He had an electrical engineering degree and worked for Telecom, which is the telecommunications and telephone company at the time here in New Zealand. And he also had his own computer. I think we were the only 2 in the whole city that had personal computers.
Mm-hmm.
And so we got together and swapped ideas, and just helped each other and developed from there. So that's how I
And
ended.
that telecom stuff landed you, in a sense, your first programming gig, right? Where it was paid.
Oh yes, I forgot about that. Yeah. Telecom at that point was changing over their data collection system for the telephone system, from teletypes. They wanted to computerize it. So they had teletype machines and punch tape readers that collected data from their outlying telephone systems, and wanted to computerize that. And so I said, well, I could emulate that and write a program, that would emulate what you're doing on the teletype system. So they said, yeah, go for it. And so I wrote a program to do that, and sold it to them for, I don't know, $1,500 or something at the time. So that was my first commercial job. And after that, I think there were 6 or 8 different regional districts that bought the program from me, and I
Okay.
maintained it for 6 or 8 years.
Now, what type of machine was that running on? Was that a CPM box as well?
I presume that it was, but I don't specifically recall. But since I was writing under CPM, it probably was.
Okay. Was that all assembly language or Forth, or what did you use there?
Do you remember at all, Benjamin? I think I
No, I
might have
don't.
actually written that in BASIC because it wasn't speed critical at all.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Very interesting. And you're still obviously in New Zealand today.
Yeah. Yeah, we're happy here. I retired about 10 years ago, and so we've been enjoying retirement years. Mm-hmm.
Good deal. Well, it was very nice having you on the show. Ben, nice having you back.
Thank you very much. And I just wanted to finish with if folks want to run that Pentomino puzzle, solver that Dad's worked on over the years and Forth, I'm going to post a link here on the chat, but I can follow up with you as well. If you type G-Forth Pentomino, because there's a G-Forth version out there. If you type G-Forth Pentomino, it should come up. But you can run that on your Linux or Windows or Mac machine these days, and it solves, what is it, all 2,000 plus solutions in a second or two these days.
Yeah, yeah.
Very good. I'll include that in the show notes for this episode.
Well,
Lovely.
thank you.
Thanks for having us, Jim.
Great. Have a good day. Thank you.
Nice to meet you. Nice to talk.
Thank you all for watching today's show. Let's do this again soon. Take care.